Party started, family. All right, so I hope you've been having a fantastic week. It has been interesting but good for me. I can't complain at all. Um, Wound up having an outbreak, so I'm taking medication for that, and it was crazy because it wound up showing up right after I did my little doctor's visit on last Monday that I mentioned to you all. But we're gonna start this show. We're gonna continue talking about emotional intelligence. We might do it a little bit different than how we normally do the show. Well, one thing we know about this show, we do make changes. So we're adjusting again, trying to blend the techniques a little bit. So we're still gonna start off with our breathing exercise, our bowl, and our visualization. We are on our heart chakra right now. Our heart energy point, the color for that is green. That is why you see a green tint, trying to make sure we're in the heart color. Pink is the heart color for me as well. So I wore a little pink for you all today. And I got my heart ring on too. So we all the way in heart energy. Um, the element for your heart is air. So our visualization will be incorporating air some. Um, TikTok again, glad to have you back in the game. Y'all were out for a couple of weeks. I don't know, TikTok just had this thing going on where they were banning a lot of people who use Streamlabs. So, but Streamlabs worked with them, got everything figured out. Let me move my keyboard. And we are back in business. Next week, I will be out of town. I'll be on the road for a Tuesday show. I will be back home on Thursday, so Thursday night. So next week shouldn't be any issue. But Tuesday, we probably, I did like when we were in Jacksonville. I need to make a video for that too. But I did like the freestyle, so we might do a little bit something like that again. Or I don't know. I might give me some food and just talk and eat and we jaw jack. But next Tuesday, the show will be different, or we may not have it because I'm out of town. You know how that goes. But so hopefully you're in a comfortable spot. We're gonna start with our small singing bowl. Oh no, girl, I was on time. Wasn't no early. Hey, listen. Well, this is good because TikTok's comments show up in my multi-stream thread. So I got a thread where I can see it's supposed to show me all the comments in one thread, right? But generally the ones that I can see also show up on screen. But your TikTok comments didn't show up on screen, but it showed up in my thread, which is fantastic because that's the only place they've been showing up. Like I know it's TMI, but you know I'll be talking to y'all like like y'all here sometimes. Cause when I go live, right? So that's even better for you, cause you know when I go live, TikTok is supposed to it does this monitor the live thing, but the comments don't. If I put a comment on that, they don't ever show up. So I try to keep TikTok live, but you know, I just said they banned us, but we back in business, and your comments show both of them. Whoop whoop whoop. That's a win. Cause I know that's your site. Liberty like it too, cause the hearts and Twitch offers more games. There's more interaction, but you just can't sit there and tap the screen 1,000 times and get a million hearts. But I appreciate you. Um, Even though you don't have a good exchange policy, I'll accept it. see. Forgive me. I'm thinking about how I'm gonna do the show, and I went into the zone with the noise going on, and yeah. Find out. You sending me coins? Let me find out. I need to put my cash app in there. You want to send me some money? Send it to me directly. We've been doing the 4-4-4 breathing exercise. I feel like it's time for 3-7-8. No, well, not 3-7-8. 4-7-8. 4-7-8. 4-7-8. I appreciate you, girl. You supposed to tap till your thumb get tired. You got me sitting up here talking to you. We had a surprise guest come in and out tap the regulars last week. So I'm like, you can't be getting embarrassed like that. Come on now. You definitely soul family. You're supposed to tap, tap, tap. Somebody came in here and tapped it 1,000 times. I value them and I appreciate that too. So that's good business. But we're gonna do the 4-7-8 breathing exercise. That is, you breathe in for a 4 count, hold for 7, breathe out for 8. I will do the count. Let's do it 3 times. So on my count of 3, you begin to breathe in. So 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more time. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Liberty, I see you. Welcome. Now, it should be your comments show up in on my screen, even though it doesn't show up on the screen, which is wild. It should. But the comments showing up on the screen is really for everybody else and not necessarily for me. We did the 4-7-8 breathing. Hey, happy Tuesday. I can see your comments now. Woo, 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 woo. Yeah, help Toddy out. She be slow on the tapping the thumb. But the element for your heart is air. And you know that's one of my favorite elements. So you can imagine yourself sitting wherever you are. But one of my favorite feelings, one thing that I do miss about when I did have locks, was when I used to put my locks in the ponytail. But most of the time you have them down and they cover the back of your neck. When I put them in a ponytail, I'd get to feel the breeze across the back of my neck. And that was one of the best feelings ever that I do miss from having locks. But imagine yourself in a situation like that. One of the best feelings that you have where the breeze is blowing across you, whether it be a fall breeze, a spring breeze, a summer breeze, or even for you winter babies, you're going to have you a cool, crisp winter breeze. But just allow that breeze to grow across you. You feel it as it blows through your eyelashes and through your hair and across your neck. You even feel the wind as it blows across the tip of your nose. And as that wind blows, I want you to feel an energy of change, a new direction, a healing energy within that breeze. And it begins to make you feel stable. And as you are standing there enjoying the breeze, begin to think of some of your favorite smells that breeze is blowing across to you, whether it be the smell of a flower or your favorite food. Just let that breeze just encapsulate you for a while. And as you stand there, I want you to start paying attention to your breathing as you breathe in the wind and the change that blows across. Magnolia is a fantastic scent. You know what I mean? You can think of what is the as a matter of fact, you say a smell for heart is rose. So rose is bad, fantastic for heart energy. Jasmine. So those smells. And as you feel that breeze, I want you to take in a deep, 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 deep breath of that smell, of that calmness, of that healing. And blow out the negative emotions that you've been carrying, that expectations of other people, the periods where you had no boundaries. You blow that out, release the stress, the worry, the concerns. Breathe in a deep breath of stability, love, life, happiness. Breathe out confusion, loss of direction, disconnection, unclear communication. Keep repeating that, breathing in energy and releasing energy. Thanks for the rose. I appreciate you. Whoop, 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 whoop. And as you are breathing in and out, I want you to repeat after me. I love myself and others. I deserve to be loved. I forgive others easily. My heart is fully open, loving, and pure. I follow the voice of my heart. I love myself and others. I deserve to be loved. I forgive others easily. My heart is fully open, loving, and pure. And I follow the voice of my heart. I need the TikTok stuff to show on screen because you be trying to support. And I appreciate that. But I need that blue, like it showed on my TikTok screen. So if you watch from TikTok, you saw it. But I need everybody to see. That's where we give our little shout outs, our love to each other. But I appreciate you always. You know that. Um, and I'm glad you're here too, Liberty, because This is going to be one of my attempts to try to blend the two styles. I think we were getting informative. We want to be informative, right? But we also want to have, after my seer told me I'm in here like Saul. I was like, okay, I get it. It's a little too serious. Like, we want to be informative, but we don't want it to be so much like school. So you call it freestyle. So it's a little bit of freestyle and a mix of school. And I don't know. We're just going to see how it goes. Uh, we are going to continue our conversation on emotional intelligence. It's not, I'm sitting in here so comfortable. You have to forgive me, family. Sometimes I'm sitting with the family, so I sit comfortably, even though I'm dressed with my bow ties and stuff. I still like to be comfortable. So if I can show y'all the lower half of the table, I got pants on, so that's a good thing. I am fully dressed, um, which I don't always do for work. So don't excuse me. I just put a shirt on in a heartbeat and have some shorts on or whatever I was walking around the house in. But like I was saying, we're going to continue our conversation on emotional intelligence, and we're just going to see where it takes us. So, emotional intelligence, I do want to reiterate or re-establish the definition that, because I think it's very important as we go deeper into this discussion of emotional intelligence. And there's two main parts of this definition. One, essentially, is what we all understand. It's the ability to understand, manage, and express our emotions in healthy ways, right? And that is important, right? Because it's a freedom in being able to manage your emotions, understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and even being able to express that, whether it be through some tangible means like art or actually using your voice to communicate what you are feeling, right? Another important pivotal part of emotional intelligence is this: it is understanding how those emotions that you feel influence those around you or influence the environment itself around you, because we understand that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. So we have an energy that comes from our emotional intelligence that we expend out into this world. That's the energy that we give, right? One of the reasons why I really, 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 really appreciate and value these understandings of emotional intelligence, because it does what we've been talking about 1,000 different times, is it puts the accountability on self, right? And a lot of times an easy way to escape accountability is blame our responses on what we've heard or the situation we've been in or something that has happened. Why did they do this? Blah, 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 so forth, so forth. We remove the accountability for our experiences off of ourselves and put that accountability on the experience itself, which keeps us from learning. So I enjoy the fact that this accountability is understanding your emotions and then understanding how your emotions influence other people. Not how their emotions influence you, but understanding yourself. Because as we go deeper into this healing process, we are learning and getting a further understanding that the deeper we go, we're really just diving deeper into ourselves. It is a process of understanding who we are, right? So, another thing about this right here, and I think it's a major key to emotional intelligence, and that is self awareness, right? And I think self awareness is a I hate to say it like that, but it is somewhat of a forgotten tool, because we only think of self awareness on the extreme examples. But a self awareness also has you paying attention and being aware to the very minute examples on how you think about your job and what type of energy you walk through that door with. Because it does, people can feel, or how you feel about your living arrangements, and the energy you have as you walk through that door. Just being aware of these emotions, or even importantly, something that we've talked about a bunch is building new relationships with these words, or these with building new relationship with these words. Why we are building new relationship with these words is because these words create emotions in us, right? So it's funny that we've been having this conversation on emotional intelligence, even though we got a little bit off track the last couple of weeks. It essentially still ties back into emotional intelligence because it was a self awareness that we were getting very rigid, and then an openness to be able to receive the feedback from others because others were saying, hey, they told me to get on live Tuesday, make it freestyle, stop being so rigid. Got it. So this awareness. But it's funny because as we've been talking about this discussion, or even when we said that the next place we want to go is to emotional intelligence, with our self awareness, life has provided us an opportunity to be able to really evaluate our emotional intelligence, right? So for me, it kind of showed up a little interestingly several weeks ago. And as a matter of fact, let me check because they have a good tendency to join us on Instagram occasionally. And I don't ever get to give them a shout out. They'll probably join it right after, you speak of the devil. They'll show up. They'll probably show up right after I look, right? But talking to a friend, and my friend said to me, well, they just want to let life happen. Let life happen. That sounded almost absurd to me. I never really understood that mindset. And it's partly because of most of the examples that I've seen of people who just allow life to happen to them. They're not living a life that anyone else would want to live. They don't even like their life that they live because they just allow life to happen to them. And it's crazy because when they said that to me, I'm like, that's a terrible idea. I'm one of those people. I really wholeheartedly bought into that idea of you got to grab life by the balls. And you know what I mean? We talk about it even in our healing process where we got to have vision enough to give us a direction. So in having that vision and direction, that isn't necessarily just allowing life to happen to me. So I was kind of caught off guard with this idea of allow life to happen. But being open and being self-aware, I paid attention because out of everything that was said, that's the one thing that kept just randomly coming up in thoughts and ideas. I'd be cooking and it'd be like, allow life to happen. I think about it again, or I'm driving, allow life to happen, or it winds up coming in conversations at work, or even more importantly, when I got with the group of brothers, my strength and brotherhood, this conversation of allow life to happen even came up there. So I knew that is the self-awareness that we talk about with emotional awareness. You paying attention to the patterns, and this repeated pattern of allow life to happen keeps showing up as a sign for me. So when you're seeing this pattern where something that someone has said or something that you heard just keeps showing up, you keep having this opportunity to think deeper, to dive deeper into this. What does that mean? That is a sign to actually do that if it keeps showing up. So you do that. So I'm thinking about it, and I can't really understand this concept because, like I said, most of the examples that I've seen, um, they aren't they're not living a life that I would want to live, that I admire, right? And we wound up having a conversation. Like I said, all this led up to conversation with the brothers, and the brothers wound up giving me tools and perspectives that helped me to understand and to navigate this idea of letting life happen, right? So two big things that wound up coming up into this was this idea of acceptance and allow. So when you are allowing life to happen, those are two things that you have to be able to do. You have to be able to accept, and you have to be able to allow, right? And when these things are said to me, there are emotions that are created. And when it was said in the group, I was like, "Ooh, accept and allow. That's crazy." So then I also knew that the disconnect with my ability to be able to allow life to happen is connected to my ideas or the emotions that are created from these words: accept and allow, right? Something else that one of the brothers told me that helped me, one of the things that helped create this disconnect between allowing to happen is the examples that I kept in the forefront of my mind. Generally, the people or the examples that I kept in the forefront of my mind, they're not necessarily allowing life to happen. These are people who are just adrifting, allowing the wind to blow them any way that they can go, right? And for me, that's not what I want to live. And there's a huge difference between being adrift in life and allowing life to happen. So once these words are said, and I'm recognizing that two major tools that you need to allow life to happen resides in these words: acceptance and allow, I have to, or even you, when you recognize that, you have to go back and think, well, where did my ideas of acceptance and allowing come from? Where did these feelings, where did I get these ideas and thoughts that help shape my emotions when it comes to this idea of acceptance and allow, right? And one of the major things that I recognize is, and it's funny because it came up in various conversations, but even for myself, a lot of our ideas, specifically, we're going to use acceptance and allow, are based on these doomsday scenarios, worst case scenarios. So when I hear the word accept and allow, it creates a somewhat of a fighting emotion in me, because in my life, in my experience, in the teachings that were given to me, you don't just accept and allow. People who accept and allow, they get taken advantage of. People who accept and allow, this negative thing happens. They don't get appreciated. People who just accept and allow do not get their dreams. They do not achieve. They do not get the rewards that they fought so hard for. All these ideas on acceptance and allow were based on doomsday scenarios, the worst case scenarios, right? And it's understandable. But essentially, my relationship with these words, our relationship with these words based on doomsday scenarios, do not prepare us for what we will deal with in the majority of life, right? So generally, those doomsday scenarios are true. Those things that we mentally prepared for, spiritually, emotionally, physically, they are true. The possibilities are true. But when we actually start trying to put numbers in it, that may be at best 10% of what we call this thing life. 90% of it will be something very different, right? So I'm recognizing that my relationship with this word acceptance and allow is based on doomsday scenarios. An idea where I'd be able to navigate if this worst case scenario happens. But emotional awareness is allowing us to step back and say, well, what do we do the other 80, 90% of the time when we're not facing one of these doomsday scenarios, right? And in this conversation, one of the brothers said something that I thought was so prolific that it gave me a lot of answers. And this brother says to us, this is really, let's put an age group on it. So he said 50 and above, and I will use that. 50 and above. Well, 50, right around in there, is the first age, the first generation where parents can teach their children how to thrive in society, right? So every generation prior to that, the things that were taught, our relationships, even with words like allow and accept, were based on survival. We had real live threats that were faced to us every day, right? And when this brother said that, I promise you, I'll never forget this one time when I was in Milwaukee. And Milwaukee is a time machine. If you want to experience racism like you haven't, it can give you a dose. It's just an oxymoron. And I remember we were having this, it was interesting because this is the first type of interview I've ever even been to like this. It was just like 100 people in the interview and they're interviewing all of us at once. And I remember this younger brother, he says that he's never experienced racism. And I immediately thought, that's bull, right? And I felt wholeheartedly that it was bull because I was there less than 24 hours and experienced racism. So there's no way that you can be raised here and don't see or experience racism, right? But when this brother said this to us in the group, I recognized or I realized that even in that situation, I'm looking at this from a survival mindset. And his generation sees it very differently because they have an opportunity to thrive. This is probably the most freedom or the most diverse, the most opportunity that any culture outside of the dominant culture in America has an opportunity to succeed. This is why some people are saying racism doesn't exist. They are raised in a very different mindset, a mindset that thriving. So I recognize that my relationship with this word, with these words, acceptance and allow, is based on not only doomsday scenarios, but generational teachings from lack of opportunity. Right? So now that we've drawn this line on where our relationship from with these words, acceptance and allow, has come from, now we get the opportunity to ask ourselves one very important question. Well, if it came from that, what do I believe if I don't experience that? Or what do I believe for the other 80 or 90% of the time that I live my life, right? And I say this because it's important. one of the things that I pointed to how my relationship was built and my ideas and thoughts around the emotions that are created from this idea of accepting a lie was from the past. And now that once we start to heal and we move towards a thriving mindset, we really do get that opportunity to create and shape a life that reflects our beliefs and who we are and our thoughts and ideas on these topics, right? So recognizing that I put a lot of emphasis on what was modeled, what I seen, right? But now that we're asking this question, what we believe? What do I believe? I can see one of the reasons why I had a very interesting relationship with acceptance and allow is because of the models, what I kept in the forefront of my mind. I kept those examples that affirmed and confirmed what I thought. You don't just accept and allow. So any example that I had reflected that, those doomsday scenarios. So when I step back and I start thinking with this thriving mindset, start thinking about what I believe, I can start looking about I can start looking at the 80 to 90% of my experiences and shape a new relationship with this acceptance and allow, right? Because we're now in a space where we can ask ourselves, what do we believe, right? Okay, y'all did a good job today. I'm tripping. Toddy and Liberty, y'all been on it. You sent the finger heart. What is that's a finger heart is brand new to me, but I appreciate that. Is that send one to you too? You know what? I want to fit the show across screen. So oh no, I closed that app. I got an app where I can show it on the screen, but I think that app was making us drop a lot of frames, and I closed the app. And we've been doing good about dropping frames, so we're gonna stick with that. I'm not gonna open the app just so I can send you some hearts, but I can give you. So, as we're recognizing, like we said, we asked that question, what do we believe? It brings us right back to our relationship with this idea of accept and allow. And as I was saying, is one, we recognize that my initial relationship with these words, or our initial relationship with these words, are based on doomsday scenarios or in an attempt to give us the tools to survive. Whether this onslaught is regularly or it doesn't come that often, we need the tools to survive, right? So we don't accept and allow. We try to control, right? And then I also, as we're thinking about this relationship and now we're assessing what do we believe, what is all of this exercising our emotional intelligence because we're digging deeper in ourselves, digging deeper to the emotions, the connections. Why do we feel this way? Figuring out things, right? That is a living example of emotional awareness that we're exercising just by thinking about why or what is my relationship with these words, so we can pinpoint the emotions that these words create so we can address the emotions, right? So I dug a little deeper into thinking about what is the disconnect with accept and allow, right? And I recognize that acceptance and allowing is really like the cousins to this idea of hope, right? And again, I got to thank the brothers because they helped me make this connection. Dude gave an example of how he planned to move, right? And he ain't know how it was going to happen. He just knew he was going to move. And 2 years later, he moved. And that made me think about the times in my life where I've set a goal. We talk about it ourselves, which is crazy. We talk about how we got to have vision and direction, but then allow the space for us to adjust. So we even use the word allow, but we weren't recognizing how we feel about allow, because we use allow and accept very differently than how we emotionally respond to those words, right? And it made me think on, in my life, I've done that a ton. As a matter of fact, this show, The Soul Family, is a perfect example of that, where we had a vision and a direction. We wanted to find our tribe, and we wanted to do this healing, this communal healing together. And we want to create a safe space for vulnerability and expression of emotions. But that's it. And after that, we just kind of hoped that it would work out. And it is. But in that hope, the reason why I say it's the cousin, because in that hope, we have to accept and allow. I have to be able to accept the advice, the words, the communications that other people say to me. I have to be able to accept the new information that I learn so I can give to you all, or we can share with each other. And I have to allow the space for things to come together, for the vision. We've said it before. Sometimes when you do the work, the vision becomes clearer. So even in this process, this is why I say it's cousins to hope, because the two tools that you need to make hope work are acceptance and allow. And then I dug a little deeper. So we've already established that I had an interesting relationship, or we have an interesting relationship with this idea of hope. I know that's right. We have been, we working on 2 years now. And I appreciate you being here. But this, like we said, this is a perfect example because we've allowed this show to grow and shape in a lot of different ways. You remember when we first started, it was just, I wanted to just be all readings, but then we had no space to communicate, or even if we would have just kept it with all readings, we wouldn't have been able to create the space to build the bonds. You know what I mean? We've just been referring and commenting on other people. We wouldn't have had the space to share the information. You know what I mean? Or even have the space for when we get our new family to join. People would have been less likely to join because they feel like the only way that they can participate is on camera, right? But we've grown and allowed, and we've shaped and molded and done all these things. We've lived with hope and used the two tools, allow and accept, to get us through with this hope. But again, our relationships are based on those doomsday scenario survival. So when we use hope in a positive way, we don't even recognize that. But once we have the emotional awareness and the emotional intelligence, we can recognize that, because that's still our energy that exists somewhere, right? But as digging deeper, I also recognize it's not just a matter of what I was taught, right? There's levels to this, because if I just put it on what I was taught, that just puts the responsibility on society, our parents, our schools. But we started off, the definition puts the accountability and responsibility on self. And I recognize one of the reasons I had difficulty with allowing and accept is and this idea of confidence. You know, we still I'm going to do it. I just don't know how. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how. Cause you know me, I don't be wanting to charge for anything. And if I do it now, I'd have to charge. But I we really try to live this stuff that we talk about. So we put a lot of good energy out there with the understanding that the universe is going to take care of us. You know what I mean? So I want to be in a space where I can continue with our vision. You know what I mean? Now I think that there's probably at some point in time we will need to consider charging for stuff like that. But I know initially the people who are to participate will be, the original soul family. They'll really participate in that. And that'll just be family. That'll be like, a Last Supper, no doubt. So it's funny that you say that too, because you got me sidetracked a little bit. But we do those spiritual journeys in here. And one of the spaces that we use in that spiritual journey is I got a closet that gets very dark in there. It's very black, right? But while you're on this journey, you're in the darkness, but you can see a lot of lights, right? And honestly, it winds up giving you an opportunity to be able to figure out how to project your light. Because if you figure out how to project your light in the darkness, you can illuminate things that are in the dark, right? So I have been practicing it for a minute, and I got it one time, and essentially what I saw in there was like a soul family dinner. It was just a group of people sitting around at the table, eating, laughing, joking, having a good time. So then the darkness didn't seem as scary, right? So, and I'm just saying this to you because maybe the soul family dinner is what I was actually seeing. So it's bound to happen. I've had visions of it. You know what I mean? The family wants it, but I guess it's really just a synchronicity of life. As a matter of fact, we're just waiting for the alignment to come together. Facts. Thank you. But I also recognize that when it comes to this idea of accepting and allow, there's a level of confidence that you got to have, right? And I know what my skill sets are. My skill set, I'm very, 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 very good at seeing a problem and knowing what it needs to fix it. Like I'm so good at that at this point, I don't even have to think about it. I can just look at it and be like, all right, I see what the issue is right now. And I can tell you exactly how to fix it. That's my gift. I've even taken personality inventories and tests and trainings that support that. You know what? This is exactly what you're good at. You're very good at this, right? So with that skill set and being able to see problems and how to fix them, I had confidence in that. Whether it be in my personal life, my work life, my spiritual life, all of that. Hey, everybody on TikTok today, hey Sherry, the gang's all here. We got Tater Tot. And I didn't even realize you was still there, Tot. So thanks. You know what I mean? And we got Liberty too. So glad because the gang's all here. So you like, hey, okay, hey. Glad to have you. It's perfect timing too. We was just talking about Soul Family Dinner, and you would be one of the people that would go to the Soul Family Dinner. But I'm gonna figure it out. We're waiting for the alignment of life to come together because it will. And I'll burn up for y'all. I'll do some cooking. Now y'all get to try some of these vegetarian dishes, right? So, in building this new relationship with accept and allow, I have to recognize that one of the reasons is a disconnect is because a lack of confidence. I don't really accept and allow a lot. And as we talked about, because accept and allow wasn't based on my ideas, wasn't based on 90% of life. It was based on survival, right? But in recognizing that it's a confidence thing and then having a brother point out ways, or even us discussing ways that we've used accept and allow very differently, we recognize that there are spaces that we exist that we do accept and allow things to happen. And once we come, even if they just reside in our memories, once we know that those are spaces that we can pull our energy from. You remember, one of the main things of this healing process is to bring all parts of ourselves into the present. And one thing that we've used in our past is our ability to accept and allow things to happen with our vision and growing and shaping that. So when we have those moments, we can take that energy back and bring it now. Because right now, as we're shaping a new relationship with accept and allow, we need those examples of where we utilized it and it was beneficial for us. Or now we can turn and start looking at the examples of people who accept and allow, and it does their life great. I said one of the best examples of people who accept and allow are lottery winners. Sometimes we don't understand them, but they accept and allow. They accept that it's a process. They allow life to happen. And sometimes they actually do win. Definitely is another example of shifting perspective. That's pretty much all this healing process is. It's us gathering the new tools, and the tools are perspectives, new ways to view things, expanding, allowing life to happen so that we can grow. So it is definitely about that, and recognizing how we can utilize our energies from past experiences, bring it back to us. Like, I know what kind of confidence I had then. And now you can feel that same confidence today in whatever you are doing, right? Something else that we want to think about in that relationship with okay, we almost at that hour. Boop, boop, boop. Is so to be able to fully address this relationship with allow and accept, we have to establish what emotions are actually created from allow and accept. So we've talked a lot about allow and accept. We've made a lot of different connections, but we haven't gotten to the exact emotions because, we got to put names and words to these exact emotions so we can address them, right? So I know when I think about when I initially was approaching allow and accept, it creates a high level of anxiety. I automatically start thinking like, oh no, oh no, oh no. What am I about to have to allow and accept? You start worrying, so it creates a certain level of anxiety for me. It puts me in a defensive posture. I get defensive because I'm not about to allow and accept anything. And that defensive can easily slide into angry. So I can sit there even though I'm not even being asked to allow or accept anything. Just the thought and the idea, just thinking about it can create low levels of anger, right? So we just thought about 3 different emotions just from analyzing how accept and allow makes us feel anger, defensive, and anxiety. And then the next question is, does that match how we want to live, how we want to thrive? Does it reflect a thriving mindset, or are they still living in a survival mindset? Um, yeah, so okay, so this the thing about it is really figuring out how not to apply, because a lot of our perspectives are we apply good or bad to it, and most of the time it just is, right? So I don't think it's going back into the practice of not attaching good and bad to certain things, certain words, certain experiences. I think it's a growth. As we heal more, as we grow more, we learn new words that affected us that we had no idea, right? Because we've talked about hope, we've talked about worthy, we've talked about family, we've talked about grace, we've talked about forgiveness. So as we grow, we're starting to learn that these words that we live by, they do create emotion. We have unconsciously already attached good or bad to these words. And we have to bring it to the light. That's why we even having a discussion for this. What emotions does it create in us? We have to bring to the light. And whether it's through our own due diligence or our self-awareness and being aware enough to be able to receive what's coming on, recognize the opportunities for us to review because the patterns keep reappearing, it allows the space for us to grow, right? So it is recognizing more spaces that we need to stop applying good or bad to and accepting it for just it is. It's recognizing it's a space of growth for all of us. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these words, it ties back into that idea where we discuss normalized dysfunction. A lot of this stuff is attached to dysfunctional things, and we have no idea because it's our norm, right? So even going back to the words that we're talking about tonight and accepting aloud, it creates emotions. And we having those emotions, being aware of these emotions, going this deep is the perfect example of emotional awareness on a healing path. Because most of what we think, most of what we thought, most of what we live by, no matter how successful it has been for us, has been very wrong as it relates to who we are individually. People did our best. We got a lot of those well-intended things, good intentions. But our choices is our responsibility. Like we said, the emotional intelligence ties back and put the accountability back on us. And I think that's that. It's that space where we're still growing. We're gonna learn new. Life gonna give us another opportunity now that we got acceptance and allow. We can build a new relationship because we recognize what emotions that it used to be, and we're asking ourselves, does it reflect who we are? We're gonna learn new words that trigger us unconsciously or on a subconscious level, right? And I think that's the perfect example of that. So next, I kind of wanted to get into self-regulation, but we'll pause. We spent a lot of time on self-awareness because all of this was digging deeper into self-awareness. People talk about self-awareness, but we work through a real life example on how it starts from just a simple pattern from a friend saying something to you that you keep thinking about. to now that you recognize that those ideas create emotions that no longer represent who you are, right? So next week, it's good time. Next week, let me think. I'm kind of thinking, we out of town next week, so I don't know if I want to continue. We've been going over a little bit lately, so let's keep the party going. Doo doo doo. I do feel like talking a little bit longer. It's only 8 o'clock on the dot. Okay, hey Jess, boop boop boop. Welcome. I ain't even see you in there. You gotta leave a comment or something so to show on my screen, but you just got the number 2 gifter. What you out here tapping? Is it just that serious? I appreciate you. No, I mean I know you sleepy. Lord have mercy. So another good tool in emotional intelligence is self-regulation. And even though we went deeply into self-awareness and recognizing and found 2 words that we need to reshape our relationship with, something that's just as important as self-awareness is self-regulation, right? And honestly, gracias. I appreciate you. uh, life is, again, just like before, how we started with self-awareness. Life is giving you the opportunity to be able to recognize how you manage, how you self-regulate these emotions, how you manage these emotions, right? And essentially, it's trying to make sure that we manage these emotions in healthy ways, which is requiring us to dig deep, which is requiring us to evaluate our relationship with these words and how we respond. It is making us do that so that we can begin to replace those with healthy examples, new perspectives, right? The shift in perspectives. And it's funny because again, in the men's group, one of the things I really appreciate about that men's group and something that we establish here as well is vulnerable communication, right? That vulnerability or open and vulnerable communication, just being able to speak your truth, it feeds your soul. It is a grounding experience, right? Not just from what you give, but when you're in a space where others are also communicating vulnerably and communicating authentic truths, it's what you receive. And like I talk about the men's group a lot because of this. It's that vulnerable communication that feeds my spirit. They give me so much. I give them so much. They give me so much. But something major that came out in this conversation as it ties to emotional intelligence and how I self-regulate these emotions, right? One thing that we have to recognize, and I know this is true for a lot of us, because one of the brothers brought it back to me after I said it. I fed him with it. He digested it, came back with something different. But something that was profound that one of the brothers said is really essentially my hurt self trying to protect the hurts, right? So how I regulate and navigate these emotions, they are really just based on pain. A very well intended method to be able to protect yourself, your previous hurts, from future hurts. And you may not ever get that hurt again. But if you're living in the space where your hurt self is trying to protect you from your hurts, we discussed it. Life does not prove you wrong. It has a greater tendency to prove you right. So as A man thinketh, so be it. So as a person think is what we have. So it was really therapeutic to be able to come to realization that regulation on emotions is based on trying to prevent myself from getting that hurt again. And that is essentially a survival technique. Thinking like that does not allow us to live in a space of thriving in emotions, a thriving in love, thriving in anger, thriving in boredom, thriving in peace, thriving in stability. We're protecting ourselves from things that may not necessarily happen again, right? And the self-regulate ties back into our ideas of accept and allow, because how we respond to these things, how we regulate the emotions that these words create in us, affect how we regulate ourselves and we navigate these emotions. So once we go deeper and we dig out the emotions that these words or these relationships with these words create, we can then start to look at how we normally respond to these words, right? Because each emotion that we recognize that these words create in us, they also create a response. So then we can recognize the behaviors, and those behaviors, those responses are your perfect examples of how you self-regulate as you go through these things, right? And once we recognize that, then we can replace these ideas and these behaviors with new ways to self-regulate. Like one of the words that are very beneficial that we've used all the time is grace. A lot of times in these things where we're trying to protect ourselves, or we just provide ourselves grace, the opportunity and the space to make mistakes again, or even just to make a mistake. There's freedom in that. There's healing in that. There's peace in that. And that's a healthy way to self-regulate, allowing your space to actually feel these emotions, replacing the emotions that aren't necessarily beneficial, reaching back in that timeline and grabbing that confidence back, or excuse me, grabbing that self-awareness back from the examples where you've already done this. Excuse me, applying, moving those new ideas, those new models, those new examples to the forefront of your mind and pushing the old ones out, right? This is how we shape our self-regulation skills as it relates to emotional intelligence, recognizing our relationship with words, recognizing the emotions that these words create, and then recognizing the behaviors and responses that we have when these words are said or when these emotions are created. Um, I appreciate y'all tonight. We've been going off. Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay, TikTok got everybody. And it's funny because I'm looking at this and it's where it's just one person watching. I'm out here joking with y'all, and I can see it's like 14 people. Let me see. Okay, so I ain't gonna go too much deeper. I will stop there. We got a couple more things. There's a couple more tools that I think that will be beneficial in our discussion of emotional intelligence, and we'll go into those. I think that they definitely need the space to be discussed on themselves, and that is, what do we have? Empathy and our social skills and understanding. Empathy and our social skills, how we navigate these ideas of accept and allow. because those are the things that we're going to need. Those are two tools that we will need to achieve our healing and our the vision that we have for the life that we love, right? So next week we'll be out of town. Then Tuesday, I don't know. I mean, I know where I'll be, but we might still go live and have a little freestyle, or I might talk a little bit about empathy and social skills. If not, no siento. Um, Thursday we will be live this Thursday, continuing reading Before I Let Go. It's getting a little lit now. I think I'm laughing because he's tired of being a daddy. The responsibilities of being a father was heavy on him, especially when he was still a kid too. So we're at that part in the book. If you can't join us Thursday, I hope to see you again next Tuesday. And if you can't see us Tuesday, then don't forget us about Thursday. If you're feeling lucky and you're feeling bold, don't be afraid to jump on and get a live energy reading. I know the Soul family will support you in that. We be gentle. Uh, but get your opportunity, find out what kind of energy that you're dealing with so you can start figuring out what type of relationship you need to deal with the words in your life. I don't know what the next book we got. So I think we got chapters and chapters left of Before I Let Go. So I don't know what the next book is. I'm definitely, I can say this, I'm definitely gonna put it at a poll, and I definitely probably have to put some parameters on it because I don't want to read a book that's too sexy. Because we struggled through that one. It had a good point. It was good, but that book was just a little too sexy, and I had to skip so many sentences in that book, which is crazy. But I appreciate your support. I love you, Soul family. We're gonna work on everything. See you Thursday for book club. If not, see you next Tuesday for Soul Family Live. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Um, I hope you eat all your Easter eggs before the end of this weekend. But have a great one, family.